Guys, so we're at my local range. It's a beautiful day, a little cold this morning and windy, so hopefully the wind isn't being picked up on the mic. Filming this on a GoPro Hero 12 with a Movo boom mic, so hopefully everything comes out good. But I got two AR pistols today, both in 12.5 configurations. The first one has the Roscoe Manufacturing Sage Dynamics 12.5 with their patrol gas system. Hopefully that doesn't play into any audio issues, or rather tone issues with the can. I don't think it will. It's not that big of a difference as opposed to the mid-length. But so that's the first one. Second one we'll be doing is my my 12.5 with the tri-arc barrel. That's a mid-length gas system. That one will have the new can. So not only are we going to have our first shots with the new AAC Ranger 5, but we're also going to be comparing the two. So first up, I'm going to shoot the 12.5 with the AAC can on it, or the AAC SD 556 or 556 SD, whichever one it is. I always get it backwards. So that's this guy right here. Let's see how this goes. I got 10 rounds. So here we go. Alright, and then here's the Ranger 5 on this guy. So let's see how this goes. Hopefully it sounds good. Here we go. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be going over the Advanced Armament Company, or AAC's newest 5.56 suppressor, the Ranger 5. So that is what we have here on the bench. Let's take a look at what it comes with. So, cool packaging. I'll actually show you what their legacy packaging was, because ironically enough, my very first suppressor was the predecessor to this guy. So this is what the packaging was previously. Coming like so. It just opens up like that. We'll talk more about this guy in a minute. But this is the current iteration of their dedicated 5.56 suppressor. Comes as such. You've got your information on either side. Little slip. Throw that back there. And then it opens up like so. You got your little top foam cover with a cutout of the insignia. Here you have a card that comes with two QR codes. So the first QR code here is for the manual. The second one is for the warranty. And then within is just the suppressor with the integrated mount. So let's move this out of the way and get into this. So here is the Ranger 5. It is a 5.56 heavy-duty use suppressor, bored to 6mm to help reduce some of the back pressure. I did take a look internally, and after internal inspection, you can see that the first baffle is double-clipped. All additional baffles beyond that are single-clipped. I'm not entirely sure what that aids in. I do know that without clipping, there's some type of turbulence that happens within the suppressor that can cause destabilization of the bullet as it passes the bore, and you get erratic accuracy as a result. But the first and fourth baffles are ported. I'm assuming that this is going to allow gases to flow back and forth as the bullet travels down the bore. being bored to 6mm also allows the suppressor to be used on firearms chambered in 6mm arc, 243 Winchester, 6mm PRC, 6mm Creedmoor, 6mm Max, etc. Pretty much all 6mm cartridges will pretty much work in this. Those are some that are stated on the website itself. The Ranger 5 is a tubeless design, utilizing 718 Inconel for the blast baffle and 174 H900 stainless steel for the remaining baffles. Those baffles are then laser welded together to form the suppressor. As you see here, if this wants to play ball today, so you can see real clean lines here for the laser welding. The tubeless design is going to aid in creating a shorter and a lighter package. So previous iterations were single or double walled. So you'd have a tube that would have baffles inserted internally, welded in place, and as a result of having additional material, would weigh more and end up being longer. This does have a removable front end cap, as you can see here. Now, they did this for the sake of being user serviceable. So in the event that you would ever have a baffle strike or end cap baffle strike, rather than setting it in for warranty repair, you can just get an end cap and then you can replace it yourself. It is threaded in place. However, you'll need a tool to remove it. You can purchase this tool right from AAC's website. It's their AAC Blackout Breakout tool. It's the same tool you'll use if you're running any one of their three-prong flash hiders. You can get this tool and it inserts into the front of the muzzle device, and you would use that to thread on and torque it to spec. The back of the suppressor is threaded half by 1.375 by 24 TPI for hub compatibility. This is something I'm going to have to come back to because there is some information that needs to be known about this suppressor in particular as it pertains to hub compatibility. So we'll circle back on that. It does come with a direct thread adapter, as you can see here. If I remove it, you can see that the adapter has an integrated single port muzzle brake. This you can run without the can on it, and the brake itself acts as a sacrificial baffle essentially. This is good for running on shorter barreled rifles. It's been stated that if you have anything 12 inches or less, you want to have a blast baffle or a brake to be used as a sacrificial blast baffle to extend the life of your actual blast baffle. So just a little food for thought. As far as the specs are concerned, the Ranger 5 comes in at 15.2 ounces with the included mount. I am not running that mount. I'm currently running the Griffin Armament taper mount system. It's their Plan A system, but it's not from Griffin Armament. I'll touch on that later. With that mount, it comes in at 14.1 ounces with the taper mount that I have using with this, essentially. It's 5.825 inches long with the mount installed, which pretty much comes out to the same thing with the other mount that I'm using. It is an inch and a half in diameter. It is full auto rated. I could not find any information on whether there was a barrel length restriction or not. I'm assuming that there is no barrel length restriction, as it would have been definitely stated on the website. And lastly, it has a advertised reduction rate of 32 decibels. So pretty good, especially for a shorter can, sub 6 inches, and being so light. So to briefly cover on the predecessor to this can, which is AAC's 5.56 SD. Slide this out of the way for a second. I'll bring this guy in. So this was my very first suppressor, and it's a dedicated 5.56 hard use suppressor. We'll spin it around as it opens up, clam style. Jeez, always fights me. And this is a suppressor right here. It is painted, obviously. It does come with a little pouch so that you can store it. It's got some literature, so it comes with a couple cards, which will be, you know, mounting your muzzle device, how to use and maintain the original suppressor or the 5.56 SD, and then just some foam inside. Nothing to write home about. So, excuse me. This can is a great can. I have thousands of rounds on this guy. I've gotten it very hot, and I run the same system, the Griffin Armament taper mount system. Some of you that are familiar with AAC must be wondering, how is that possible? Well, when I got the can, a week later I was at a class, and as has been notorious with the 51 mouth ratchet system, they don't lock up tight. Typically they don't lock up tight, and as I was doing maneuvers and running from point to point, I can hear the can rattling on the end. That's a no-go for me. And as soon as I got back, I shipped it out to Echo Machine out in Colorado, and they lopped off the portion for the mount, or the at least the ratchet system, and then they thread in, or at least internally thread the can itself, thread in their adapter piece for hub compatibility, and then it's TIG welded in place so that it is very robust. And this allows me to use any hub compatible mount system that I want to. Essentially, I went with Griffin Armament because that Plan A system is known for being pretty robust, limited POI shift as a result of removing and reinstalling. It's repeatable POI shift for whatever it does have, and it's one of the cheaper systems out on the market. Plus, it's very flush. It adds not even a quarter of an inch of length to the suppressor. Very similar to Reardon's mounting system, or the Plan B mounting system. So, as a predecessor, here are the specs. It's 6.7 inches in length, 1.5 inches in diameter. As it comes from the factory, or at least as it came from the factory, it was 18 ounces. With its current configuration and probably a ton of carbon buildup in there, it's sitting at 20.7 ounces at the moment. That's with the taper mount adapter. It is 718 Inconel baffle. Stainless. All the baffles are 718 Inconel. Stainless steel body. Again, it came with the 51 tooth ratchet mount system, which I did remove so that I could have hub compatibility. It is full auto rated. There was no barrel length restrictions that I could find as far as any of the information is still available out there, to include the pamphlets that came with the suppressor. And this one has an advertised reduction of 34 decibels. So, considering the size and the weight reduction, primarily the size, you're talking about a 2 dB difference between the two. And as I understand it, for the human ear, it takes about 5 dB to actually hear a difference between or distinguish a difference in sound. So take that for what it's worth. I don't know how true that is, but I'm going to run with it until I learn otherwise, or I'm told otherwise. Getting back to this guy right here. So here are some of the things that I have noticed, and some of the things that I like and maybe dislike about the can. So, under practical shooting conditions, especially in open areas, as a shooter, I found no real difference in sound and tone to my ear. I did shoot this without Ear Pro, comparing it to its predecessor multiple times. I do not suggest that, but I did this for the sake of trying to learn and have some scientific or somewhat scientific backing on my findings. Now, if you listen to it and you're in an enclosed area somewhere where you can get a lot of sound bouncing off of, trees or whatever the case may be, you can hear a very, very slight difference between this can and this guy right here. It is very different, or very minimal and imperceptible in terms of practical shooting. So if you're running drills, you're running around, you don't really notice it. Where you do notice it initially is going to be a first round pop. I did notice, evidently, that this guy here, the Ranger 5, does produce a louder report on the first round, but does quiet down pretty quickly, and then they become pretty much on par with each other. And there should be some footage rolling in now to showcase that. All right, so we are in the woods, and we're going to be testing the sound mitigation or the sound suppression and the back pressure of this Ranger 5 from AAC. Now, we're going to be testing it against its predecessor, the AAC 556 SD. Ironically, I just happen to have one. So, we're going to see how it does. I know for a fact, even on my 12.5 and my 10.5, this thing reduces the sound immensely. It does a great job of sound suppression and flash mitigation. So, not testing the flash mitigation at this moment, but definitely sound mitigation and seeing how the back pressure compares from this guy to this guy, this being an older, more traditional can with a sleeve and baffles, where this is a tubeless design and it is shorter configuration, as well as having an oversized bore to 6mm where this doesn't. So we're going to run them back to back, starting out with this guy, the 556 SD, and then following up with the Ranger 5. So let's get right into it. Alright, so I do not recommend doing this. 556, even suppressed, is very loud and can cause hearing damage. In this case, being that I'm testing it and trying to give you the best feedback that I can, I'm not going to be wearing any type of ear pro. I do have my mic on my right ear to see how it sounds and if that actually does help pick up, give a more accurate representation of the sound difference between the two cans, if there is any. Now, they do claim that this one in particular has a 34 dB reduction, whereas the Ranger 5 is a 32 dB reduction. They say that it takes about 5 decibels for the human ear to distinguish the difference. I don't know how true that is. I'm not some expert in this. I'm just giving you honest feedback as far as a just everyday user and blue collar American. So 5 rounds with this guy, and then we're going to move to the Ranger 5. So first up, the AAC 556 SD. It would help if I charged it. Here we go. So that's 5 rounds. Definitely getting a little gas to the face. Now, I am running a Griffin Armament snatch charging handle, the first generation. It does a great job of mitigating and dispersing that gas. They do have a Gen 2 model I would like to get my hands on that and test that out. I know they changed the shelf on the back, as well as changed the geometry of the gas port or the diversion port. So on a diversion port for this one, it's 90 degrees. On the Gen 2, it's at a 60 degrees, pushing it forward. So I would imagine it's going to be better. I'm going to reach out to a buddy of mine who has one, see if I could test it, and do a video on that. But we have the Ranger 5 up next, and let's see how it works. Here we go. All right. So, initially, because I have to review this footage, initially I can tell I am not getting as much gas back to the face. I don't know if that's coming across on camera. But I can tell, at least with that first round pop, that the Ranger 5 is just a little louder. I don't know how it's going to come across as far as the footage goes, but it does seem that the Ranger 5 may be a hair louder. Definitely is for the first round pop. I can definitely tell that. Beyond that, they seem pretty comparable. But we'll talk more about that when we get back to the back. All right. While shooting in the rain or in more enclosed areas, as I kind of touched on before, I can pick up on the difference, but only if I'm trying to listen for it. If I'm really trying to listen to it, you can hear a slight difference. It's a slightly louder tone, if that's the correct verbiage to use in that case. I do notice that this one has more of a lower tone than this one does in enclosed areas. However, when I was shooting without Ear Pro, I didn't notice any discomfort or pain in my ears as a result of the can. So maybe that's my ears are just jacked up, but I still have really good hearing. So I would imagine if it was still a very loud can, comparatively speaking, because it's 5.56, that I would get some discomfort. I did not experience that. But that is something to, I guess, consider if you're maybe in the market for a can like this, or maybe looking at this can. That's a little bit of information that I could provide to you. As far as flash signature and flash suppression goes, with the 5.56 SD, there was a small flash with the first round and essentially zero flash after that. At least for the first... After the first round, the second and third, very small flash, like very, very small. And then after about the fourth round, you have no more flash at the muzzle until you start really heating that guy up. And that's pretty much going to be every can. In terms of the Ranger 5, the Ranger 5 had a little bit more flash on the first round. I'm assuming that a lot of that is going to be contributed to the fact that it has a wider diameter bore. So it's allowing a lot more to get out. Also, the muzzle device that I have is a brand new titanium mount or muzzle device. I know that titanium will spark a little bit more. Whether that is the culprit to that, I would say that it was just slightly more than the 5.56 SD. But again, after about round 3 or 4, it pretty much subdued until you really started to heat that can up. And again, there should be some footage rolling in trying to showcase that the best that I could. Moving on to the mount. While the provided direct thread mount is fine, I did notice the suppressor came loose from the mount a few times. I don't think this is necessarily a huge deal, and I don't think this is going to be the norm for the Ranger 5. I think that this is more to do with the fact that I coated the threads in anti-seize because I knew that I wasn't going to be keeping that mount system or that direct thread mount. So there's a possibility that some of it got on to the taper itself and really didn't give it a chance to bite down, and maybe that's why it is, but that can be something to take into consideration if you're going to use any type of anti-seize on the threads going forward. I would just say use a minimal amount, enough to prevent the carbon from caking on and actually essentially welding the threads together. Continuing with the mount itself, I think it's fine. If you're going to run it as a direct thread only, or you're going to put it on one gun and it's never coming off, I think that it's fine. Throw it on there, time it, a little bit of rock set, and you're good to go. I think you'll be fine. I don't see this being an issue. Now, circling back to the whole hub compatibility issue, I found out firsthand that the Ranger 5 is not compatible with all hub adapters due to its internal geometry. At the top of the threads, there is a taper. This taper is meant to interface with AAC stamp mount. I'll roll in some pictures of what that is. But essentially, it is a hub version of their 51 tooth ratchet system. It's an improved version, and I heard that it does very good, and you actually get really tight lockup with that system. So if you have this can, you have a bunch of the older muzzle devices, you can pick up the stamp mount and you can run it with this, and the top of that threads on the suppressor itself has that taper that integrates with the shank, for lack of a better term, on the adapter itself, so that everything is concentric and it's nice and tight. So being that is there, it's going to limit which systems you can use. Now, as I was doing some research and I couldn't find a whole lot, I did hear of people running into issues with certain mounts. For one, in my situation, the Griffin Armament Plan A has a shelf that's extended. You could probably cut that off yourself and make it work. So the Griffin Armament variant won't work. However, Echo Machine makes a variant in titanium that doesn't have that shelf, and that works, and that's what I'm using on this guy now, and that's this mount right here. So, a couple others. I heard that, or at least I read that, the ASR mounts have issue with compatibility as well. There was also mention of the Chemo mount maybe having some issues. What I will say is that in my case, I wanted to keep the overall length as short as possible, which is why I wanted to go with something like this. Problem with going something like this and keeping that shorter configuration is that the internal length is going to be drastically shortened. So I found out that your muzzle device needs to be at its longest length 1.660 inches. Anything beyond that is going to contact the base of the first baffle, and it's either not going to work or it's not going to thread in all the way. In my case, because I'm running that taper mount system, I went with their minimalist brake. One, I wanted the brake to act as a sacrificial blast baffle, and then also it maintained that shorter overall length. So I know for a fact that and the easy brake will work. There is a shorter 3-prong brake, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I did talk to AAC as a customer, not as somebody putting out a video, and they suggested that running the Reardon or any type of Plan B adapter will work with this suppressor. So I did read a customer feedback where they were running a specific mount system, had the same issue I had, and AAC offered to have that sent in, and they would machine it so that it would mount up perfectly. And I don't believe they could charge them anything for that. So if that's the case and AAC is willing to do that for other customers going forward, I think that is absolutely amazing that they're willing to do that for their customer base, which is a lot better than what AAC was before in terms of their customer service. So that pretty much covers that, and the blast chamber and compatibility. Let's see what other information I got for you guys. All right. So what are my overall thoughts on this guy? So first, I like to say that I really, really like this can. It is so much lighter, especially on the end of the gun. You start pushing it out to like a 16-inch or 18-inch, you're really going to start feeling that weight, even though it may feel lighter in the hand. Because of that whole fulcrum being so much further, you're going to feel that weight all the way out in the front. And the further out, the more magnified that is. So I run this primarily on my 12.5. And going from this guy, while I absolutely love this guy, this one just feels so much better on the gun. So whatever the little bit of extra flash that I may get for the first couple rounds, or that first round pop being a hair louder than this one, I can sacrifice that for having a shorter, lighter can on the front. And this is kind of like in between a regular and a K configuration. Typically, Ks are a little bit shorter than this. I want to say maybe a baffle or two less than this. And then a regular size one is usually going to be about 6 inches or a little over 6 inches. So this is a really nice can in terms of length is concerned. Again, that weight is a big deal, especially for guns that have a little bit longer barrel as far as the length goes. What else? I thought the sound suppression was done really well. It has pretty good flash suppression, pretty good tone. The gas was definitely minimized over this guy. It's not this huge leap in terms of reduced back pressure, but whatever the reduction is, I can notice it and I appreciate it, because nothing sucks more than getting all that gases blown back into your eyes, getting your eyes watered up, having to breathe that shit in, which is not good for you. So being able to reduce that back pressure is definitely something that's appreciated. As far as the price is concerned, the MSRP at $899.99. However, if you wait or you shop around, you can usually find deals. I found this can through Silencer Shop. They were doing a promotional deal. It was $100 off, and then they covered the tax stamp. So whether that is still going on at this moment, I don't think it is. Maybe it'll come back, but I'm sure you could find it for cheaper, especially now that the can's been out for about a year now, maybe a little over a year. So the only downsides that really I can think of is the mount compatibility. If you're married to a certain system, I can see how that might be an issue for you. Otherwise, if you stick with the Reardon system, or even if you do the Griffin Plan A mount, but you get it from Echo, because Echo's not going to have this shelf. As you can see here, this shelf right here is much more extended on the actual Griffin one. This one is not, and they come in titanium. They do have ones that have a little bit longer, so they have the longer one and then the extra long one, which will allow you to use any type of muzzle device length. It'll cover all those bases. However, you're adding length to the suppressor, and I wanted to keep it as short as possible. Adding that extra length might actually increase the amount of space in that blast baffle, might actually help with that first round pop. But this is just all assumptions based on how I think about things and just that internal expansion, that's available. Overall, I think it's a really good can. I think it's a good buy in terms of my limited experience with suppressors. Yeah, if you have one of these, I really appreciate it if you would comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. Has it been good to you? Have you ran into any issues? If you had issues with mounts, let me know what mounts work for you and how you kind of got around certain things. If this is something that you were considering based off of now my video and then one other person's Golden Web, which did a pretty good video on it as well. Let me know if this is something that you're still considering, or has there been something that has come to light based on his video or my video, or maybe some information you read on Reddit that is now dissuading you from this. I do like having that interaction with you guys. I do like talking back and forth because I learned from you guys just as much as I try to put out the best information that I can. So if you don't mind commenting below and we can spark up that conversation, I greatly appreciate it. Otherwise, if you stuck around this long, I really appreciate you watching the video. Let me know how I did down below, what I can do to make things better, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks.